Okay, so it is cool. It's visible to you guys. Okay, so let's talk about conference in general first, right? So a conference is not just a conference, right? A conference has to be understood in a variety of perspectives, right? Just because someone did a conference does not mean they know a lot of things about what a conference or an MUN should be like, right? So let's just kind of break those things down into more granular terms, so that at least we have a better idea of what the big picture looks like, and we're not focusing on one small area of what MUNs or youth parliaments are about, right? So the first question is, why do we do it, or why should someone do it, right? These three things that you're looking at your screen: network or social circle, communication skills. I mean, the first two are something you guys hear from your friends, or your school MUN club, or people who are organizing MUNs among your friends who are organizing those private conferences or something. So these are two things that you hear from them. Ki you'll get a very good exposure. Uh, you'll be able to practice your public speaking skills, and I don't know what all things those marketing people use. But yeah, I mean, yada, 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 it all goes into those kind of things that, it helps you talk to people. But most of us are either already good at it, right? Or we probably don't want to talk to anyone, right? Then why are those skills are even important to us or not, right? That's one thing that we should always think about, that the skills that are being served to us, whether it's our school which is doing it, whether it's our parents which are asking us to attend a class, or whether it's our friends who are asking us to tag along to something. Do you need that skill? That's one question only you can answer fully well, and it's all right to be confused, right? But I've seen that there are some people who are completely introverts, and they do not want to participate in these kind of events. So if those guys get dragged into these events, it's not going to be a very good experience for them, and it's in their nature, right? You can't do it. uh, I'm not saying that makes anyone in any way less significant, or less skillful, right? Everyone has a different set of skills. But yes, it's important to understand that the whys of doing an MUN. Do you qualify for any of those? Do you need any of those, right? If I take my personal example, right? Uh, Network and social circle is one of the greatest takebacks that I had from MUNs, right? I made friends from almost every city in this country. But I guess, and that I think remained one of the most important motivations for me to keep doing conferences in different cities, and visiting different places, right? So yeah, I mean, I think I was qualifying for the first why that is there for doing MUNs, because my communication skills were pretty much okay. I don't think I needed to practice them a lot to get better at them. I think my school education already sufficed for that, right? But it was because it was offering me a network and exposure to like-minded individuals that I felt that yeah, I mean, this is a good thing, I should keep doing it. Now the last point, practicing nuance. So practicing nuance is something, kind of keep these two words in your mind. And I think we'll touch upon these 2 points later in this discussion as well throughout this slide, right? And you can maybe Google what nuance stands for, and I think most of you already know. So yeah, I mean, give it a thought, and if you have a question, raise it there. The next one is, what is it, right? I mean, what are those things which you need to do it, right? Now the first thing is that you have to understand what are the types of conferences. As I said, there are MUNs, there are youth parliaments, right? But in an MUN or even in a youth parliament, we see different committees. That's what we call them, right? I think that I'm doing this committee, you're doing that committee. Which committee should I do, right? And are you inside the committee, are you outside the committee? That's the lingo that we use, right? Everyone agrees to that. I think the one most important thing that we fail to remember over that abuse of the word committee is, not all of them are committees. There are councils, there are assemblies, there are organizations, there are parliaments, right? Uh, so putting it all together, right? Every single word represents a different meaning. A committee is not a council. So if you're sitting in a security council, you can't say I'm sitting in a committee, right? Knowing these small differences actually create a huge impact in the way you think what you're doing in an MUN, right? If you're sitting in a youth parliament and you're sitting in, I don't know what fancy committee you can make. Again, I'm abusing the word committee, but yeah, I mean, let's say you're sitting in Lok Sabha. You're not sitting in a committee, you're sitting in a house of the parliament, right? So the difference is there that I'm not saying that you should stop saying committee, you should say I'm sitting in a council. But what I'm trying to expose here is the one very simple mistake which we do, which kind of impacts our understanding of what's going on, right? So as long as you're not aware, as long as you cannot differentiate between a committee and a council, I think, we need to stop and study a little more before we turn up to the next conference, right? Only if you have a better idea, only if you have a better clarity, will you be able to absorb everything that's going on in a conference, right? Otherwise, we're showing up for a lot of other things, which I think I might have mentioned in the slide. So let's go on that. The second thing is methodologies used. Now, you guys must have heard about, different procedures which are there. There is a UN4 MUN procedure. There's a UNA USA procedure, right? Then I think I don't know if there's a Hague procedure, but there's a Howard procedure for sure. And then there was this one company that came up. I think it was called IIMUN, and they had their own set of procedures. Now, there is no right answer to which procedure is correct, which procedure is not correct, right? But for the sake of simplicity, I always like to rely upon the procedure that is prescribed on the United Nations website, right? Now, why is methodology an important thing to be kept in our mind? It's because you show up to a conference, there's an executive board, right? And they are following a procedure which precisely does not exist anywhere, right? It's simply out of their sheer imagination, right? And sometimes, people are following a set procedure, but they make separate, they make distinctive nuances just in order to ease the flow of discussion in the house, right? Whereas none of those things are wrong as long as, the delegates and the executive board agree upon it. But at the same time, it's important for us to have that understanding that what are all the things which are at somebody's disposal, right? Because if we do not keep those understanding in mind, if we do not know that what all procedures are being followed, you're susceptible to fraud. And by fraud, I mean that you show up to there's one very unique thing that happens. And I've seen that, since I went to my first MUN. In my first MUN, I think I kind of went through that as well. But later on, I figured out that it's something that was an illusion. It was a mirage. That mirage is that you meet someone who's good with procedure and you think he's very smart. You think he or she is very intelligent. No, they're not, right? They just know something that you just haven't had a look at yet. Once you have a look at that, you're as smart as them, right? So knowing is the only factor which distincts you from someone who claims that he or she is an experienced MUNer, right? Now, for example, let's say I might have done, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever number of MUNs, right? But the question is, if after doing 50 MUNs or so, I'm not an open-minded individual, I think I've wasted a lot of time in those 50 conferences that I did, right? 50 conferences multiplied by 2 or 3 is about 100 or 150 days of my life, which I will never get back. And I basically, just picked up some procedural knowledge across committees, right? The point is that knowledge is useful, but that knowledge is not something, it is basically just an instrument. It's not the end goal. So we have to be very vigilant of the fact that there are always going to be differences and distinctions in a procedure that is followed from one conference to another. But we just have to adapt ourselves to those changes, right? The unlearn and relearn paradox is what revolves in these kind of activities whenever we're dealing with them, right? Now, third thing is understanding a policy. Now, when I say understanding a policy, I was basically trying to focus on foreign policy, right? But then I figured out, foreign policy is not the only thing I would want you guys to think about, right? Now, what is a foreign policy? If we know an answer to that, or what is a party policy? For example, what is the BJP's policy, right? If we have the answer to that, we have solved half of the puzzle, right? And foreign policy is something which can differentiate based on different subjects. For example, India and Pakistan would have different relations when it comes to economics, but it might have different relations when it comes to humanitarian relations, right? So, for example, India has ended up allowing Pakistan to be a part of the vaccine discussions and the distribution discussions that it's doing, so that they can share that knowledge with them. That how can you use or distribute a vaccine well in your country, right? Despite the fact that we're not on very good terms with those countries, but we're not even at war, so it's not an enemy state, right? It's just a state that is not friendly. So understanding which council committee or which room you're sitting in helps you look at the foreign policy in that direction. So you cannot treat Pakistan the same way if you're sitting in a disarmament and international security committee, and you cannot treat them the same if you're sitting in social, cultural, and humanitarian committee, right? So again, that's what understanding a policy basically, I'm trying to imply, that whenever you're looking at a policy, just keep an open mind. And the last thing is simulating a real world scenario. So when at any given point of time, it is important to remember that this is basically just a competition which where we're showing up to. At the same time, you have to remember that you're discussing on a real world issue that's happening at as you speak. So the only thing that you have to avoid doing while doing that is that you should not trivialize an issue by coming up with absolutely vague ideas which are doing basically nothing but maybe just getting you brownie points in the house to help you get an award or something, right? They might work at some places, right? Now, by saying that, the activities that help you get brownie points is, cutting someone else's speeches, finding too many faults in someone's speech, right? Not letting other people speak, abusing the time that you get during unmoderated discussions, and you can stop other people also if they're doing the same. It's not that you're the only one who should keep a moral high ground, but if someone else is trying to abuse these kind of things, we should try and stop that as well. There are a couple of points that in the later slides I would actually talk on that as well. Now the third is where, right? So actually the online thing never existed up until the coronavirus actually came into existence in this world. Before that, we basically had two type of conferences that generally would happen. It would either be an in-station conference or it would be an outstation conference, right? The fancy and generic basically means the fancy and generic are basically I guess synonymous to institutional or a private conference, right? So institutional conferences are usually very generic, right? You don't get fancy lunches, you don't get fancy hotels to stay in or roam around, right? And you're pretty much bound by a lot of rules when you're participating in that kind of a conference, right? Whereas private conferences, we all basically know why we go to them, if we do. Right. I think I stopped going to private conferences way back, right? After which I kind of made a pledge that I would only participate in a conference which is either happening in a college or a school, because then there is someone responsible if something goes wrong. So yeah, I mean, I would say that if you ever have to do a conference, in station or outstation, that is fine, but try to avoid participating in privately organized conferences, because those places are not academically a very constructive playground, right? And at the same time, they're basically ripping you off of money for no reason, right? Whereas at least in institutional conferences, there aren't people who are actually trying to rip you off of money, and it's not in any way going into their pocket. So they're accountable to the schools or the colleges which are allowing them to organize those conferences in their campuses, right? So try to stick to institutional conference, because if something unwanted happens with you, it can be anything that happens with you in person. It can be something that happens with you on a financial note or something, right? Or it can be any feedback that you have with respect to how something was organized. You can always reach out and drop that problem to someone, right? Whereas in a private conference, end of day, everybody vanishes, nobody's there, you can't actually ask for a grievance to be redressed. Now the third is the who. The first one, now what do I mean by the who is like the people whom you are actually associated with when a conference is going on, right? The first thing that I actually kept on the top is teachers. Why? Because none of us would be able to do MUNs if our English teachers or our language teachers, whether it's Hindi, or I'm not sure if you guys are studying in a third language as well, right? If those people did not teach us well how to communicate or how to write or how to read, if that did not happen, we couldn't do MUNs, right? If our civics and history teachers did not teach us well in middle school, we wouldn't really be able to do MUNs, right? So remember to keep going back to basics, right? Try to refer back to those books which you used to study in your sixth, seventh, and eighth standard, which give you a basic idea of what is UN and what is the Indian Parliament, right? In my case, those kind of chapters came in 6th to 8th standard in the beginning. They were there in 10th, 11th, 9th, and 10th standard as well. I went to an ISC school. But yeah, I'm not sure if in which standard do you guys come across these topics first, right? But the most important thing is stick to those basics. Remember what was taught to us. Remember what we studied in those books back when we were children, right? And those are always going to be the basic guiding principles for you to do MUNs or youth parliaments or whatever. The second is the fellow delegates, right? Whenever you're in a conference, the most time you're going to spend is going to be with the people who are in the committee besides you, right? It's very important that you're on good terms with those people, because at the end of the day, you might be able to find one or two friends out of them, right? Friends that might stick. That is if you're looking for friends, right? I wasn't looking for friends, but I seldom used to find a couple of people in every conference. Not that I've stayed in touch with every single one I've met in a conference, but yeah, for example, Ishan and I met in a conference, and because of this, I'm actually talking to you guys. Right. So things kind of connect, right? The networking is something that basically results out of all this we do. So don't be mean to people, right? Being mean to people is actually a sign of low self-esteem, right? You're just trying to diminish someone else's knowledge just because you think you know more, but no, none of us knows more than anyone. It's just that the other person hasn't Googled it yet. That's all, as I said in the beginning. The third one is the executive board. Right. So executive boards can be tricky people to deal with sometimes, right? There are some people who have their own set of agendas they follow. There are some people who would stick to the book no matter what, right? So as soon as you're able to read them, you'll be able to know that how your umpire is, and that's how you'll be able to play the game, right? So yeah, it's important to ask questions to your executive board, the questions that matter. For example, so are you going to rate us or mark us in some way, right? Are there any things which are not allowed in this house, right? What are those? And last of all, don't, I don't know, the last thing, I guess, it's again, it's a bit subjective, but I think at the end of the day, no matter what the result is, whether you're satisfied with the result or not, you can't really go back and question the executive board for why they furnish that result, right? Because we have to remember that the entire MUN exercise is something that happens purely on humanitarian criterias, right? For example, you give a speech and the executive board marks it out of 10, right? But the executive board has basically just assigned those marks because of what they believe how much good that speech was. There can be there can be a different person who walks in, and he or she, for example, I'm chairing a committee, and I see Varun on my screen, Varun gives a speech, and I'm completely blown away by his speech. I'm like, what a speech, man. Varun Gosavi, you rocked it. I mean, that's the best speech I've ever heard. And I kind of rate him 9 out of 10 marks on that speech. But a moment later, Ananya walks into the house, and she listens to what Varun has said. And Ananya disagrees to me completely. And Ananya says, how did you assign 9 marks to him? He's at best good for 6. So the entire marking criteria behind MUNs is purely subjective. No matter how many times people have tried to mathematically represent their results, but it is at the end of the day completely subjective. There is no substantial backing behind the numbers that you're looking at, right? So just because you're looking at data does not mean that data is true, right? So it's always important that we self-evaluate ourselves rather than depending on the evaluation of the executive board. For example, it has happened with me sometimes that I did not win an award, but I knew that I couldn't have done better. So I just came back. There's no point in arguing with anyone. It just leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth, right? If you think that something unjust happens with someone, of course, report it to the secretariat. Maybe if there is something that can be done. But at the end of the day, it's not a very good discussion to have. That why did I not win and why did the other guy win, right? In the end, it is what it is. Now, the third thing is the conference staff, right? The conference staff and the ministerial staff, these are kind of two people, which I think we should always be courteous to. We should remember that those are the people who are helping organize and put all of this thing together, right? They're not our servants, that just because we're paying for the conference, they are bound to listen to whatever we say. No, it's not like that. I mean, those guys are really, they do a lot of hard work and they put in a lot of effort into it. And that's how those kind of things happen. And for ministerial staff, whenever it's a school or a university conference that's happening, we see that the cleaning staff is always running around, and we should know that those guys are working extra hours for this conference. They're going to be paid the same salary even if this conference would have not happened, right? But at the end of the day, those guys are putting in extra effort to just keep your surroundings clean, right? To make sure that your classroom or your lecture halls are clean and tidy, where you can go and sit around and make sure the electricity and the AC is working fine if it's there. So yeah, I mean, make sure that we're courteous to these people. The last is the mentors and coaches, which I've kind of lately seen, to emerge as a profession. People who give training for MUNs and these kind of things. If anyone is charging money from you for this, stay away from them. They're just ripping you off again, just like private conference people, right? There's no such thing as training that is to be given for MUNs or anything, right? And even if someone is doing that, there is no reason to charge money for it, because it's not knowledge on particle physics that should not be imparted to you until and unless I worked really hard to gather that knowledge. No, I mean, it's very simple. It's a very simple set of rules that one has to remember, and there's no reason to be trained or coached for it. Now, the next thing is the takeaways. What should you take away from a conference? What are the kind of things you should keep in your mind that, these are the things that I'm to go back home after, at the end of this conference, right? The first one is, did you make any friends, right? You might not, which is fine, but you will certainly come across some like-minded people, right? The second is tolerance of other ideas, right? You have to know that, someone might have a better idea than you, but you just have to be mindful of the fact that, is that idea really good, right? If it is, it's okay. I can be flexible and I can actually adapt to that idea, right? And it's fine if someone else thought something better than you did, right? The third is gravity of the agenda in the real world. By that, what I mean is, for example, you're sitting in a conference which is discussing about COVID-19. Remember everything that happened in 2020. Just keep all of those things in mind. So many things happened in India. There was the migrant workers exodus, right? There were protests for CA and NRC back then, which were going on, which had to be shut down because of this, right? So there were people who were fighting for their fundamental rights as they believe, and they could not protest anymore. People ran out of jobs, right? There were cities which were empty, right? I think more people might have died of hunger or stress as compared to the people who have died of COVID. But yes, again, a lot of people died of COVID as well, right? So, but if we, there is this one psychological tendency that we tend to care less the higher the number of casualties are for a given scenario, right? Because I think we cared a lot when there were 100 people dead because of COVID, and I don't think anyone knows what is the total number of casualties today, as of today, for the number of people who died of COVID, because we don't care about it anymore, right? But we should, right? If we don't do that, we are doing an injustice to the entire 2 days we're dedicating to discussing something like that. And just extrapolate this idea to any agenda that you're discussing with, and try to submerge yourself in the global reality as to what that agenda basically illustrates, right? The second last is interpersonal experience. When I say interpersonal experience, I say, there might be things happening to you during a conference inside the committee room, right? Which might make you feel bad about. As I said in the previous slide, that the executive board might not give you an award, even though you deserved, maybe you think, right? which is a bad experience, of course, right? And there might be good things happening to you, right? Someone, I don't know, like I've seen in school conferences, I think I've seen, or in private conferences, I've seen that a lot, that there are those roses being sent out to people, right? You might receive a rose, right? Or something or the other, good or bad, might keep happening to you. But just remember, right, that you don't have to be blown away by anything. You have to make sure that you're still focused on everything that's going on and you're still playing the game. Just, I don't know how many cricket fans are there, but whenever you're in a conference and you're going through something that you're not liking and it's psychologically either very stressful or you're feeling too overwhelmed because of something, uh, just be like Ravichandran Ashwin and Hanuman Vihari when they were playing the third test in Australia last year, right? So just be resilient, right? Keep your focus on, do not lose your cool, right? Just be patient and keep playing. Last is an award. If you win it, it's okay. Even if you don't win it, nobody cares, right? In my 4 years of professional career as a consultant dealing in the financial sector, nobody cares if I went to MUNs. All they care about is if I'm good at what I do. And MUNs is definitely not something that we will do in life. So it's just good to take that experience as that experience is, and just not be, keep running after things that I want to be a senior member of the secretariat or something. I want to win an award or something. No, nobody cares outside that conference. Nobody even remembers. I don't think we remember after a week if what happened at the conference last week. So yeah, I mean, try to keep that thing off of your mind, because when you're motivated to stay in a conference just to win an award, you're actually missing out on all the first four priorities as they're listed, right? You can either do the first four or you can do the last one, right? You can either have an award or you can focus on the first four. But if you focus on the first four, there is a likeliness you might get an award. But even if you don't, at least you have the first four, right? So you're still 80% in the clear, no matter what. The how, as I said, nobody can tell you that. No coach, no mentor, no teacher can tell you that how to do an MUN, right? It's always going to be your own game. It's always going to be your own experience. And if you have the first four, if you're able to determine those first four factors for yourself, you'll always know how to do an MUN, right? So don't listen to anyone for that. All right, follow your own approach, have your own learnings, right? And just be mindful and be cognizant of what have you learned. Now, I have just two more slides. The first is, what should we do? First is listen. So MUNs may, as I said in the beginning, public speaking, excuse me, public speaking and communication skills, blah, 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 all of those things, you get, but you are not communicating well if you're just speaking and not listening. So in MUNs, in debating, it's important to speak well, right? In MUNs, it's important to be a better listener than a speaker, right? Because if you sit down in a conference, let's assume on an average, there are going to be 20 people in the room, at least at the minimum, right? If it's a security council, there might be 15, but I've seen conferences, just shove 5, 6 more people as observers or guests or I don't know what, right? And they have more than 15 number of people sitting in a security council also. Whereas including the executive board, there should not be more than 15, right? However, the more the number of people, the less likely the chance that you'll get to listen to someone. I think that's 10 standard probability, if you guys remember, right? So the less likely you are to speak, the more likely you'll get opportunity to listen. But the better you listen, the better you'll be able to speak, right? Which is, right, as I would, there's one don't listed in the next slide, which basically says that do not over prepare, right? Because what happens is if you spend too much of time preparing on one single direction of the agenda, then the problem is that if the committee does not catches that narrative, your entire research is not going to be useful at all, right? Now, the second thing is sleep well, right? Eat salads. Don't eat those. Don't avoid eating paneers at MUNs. Avoid eating rice. That's a personal experience. I'm telling you. You eat all of those heavy lunches. You go back into the room and you just sleep. I've done that. I would advise you not to do that, right? Stay on salads. helps you, stay awake in the committee. Drink coffee if it's there, or just, keep a bottle of water with you. Uh, Now, yeah, again, coming back, create a narrative, right? So whenever we're researching on something, right, we're always following a narrative, right? Now, our narrative comes under a lot of brackets, as we can say, right? The narrative can be about the foreign policy that we're following, or the party policy as it is, right? What that agenda is, and all those things. But if we are bringing to table nothing but facts and figures and numbers, nobody's going to understand that, right? Nobody gets numbers. What people get is a narrative. You have to tell people that what that story, what that narrative is, because of for whom you're actually able to bring about a solution, right? Or everything that a committee is about is nothing but the narrative, and you have to first understand what the committee's narrative is, and then you have to try to bring it to your own narrative. If you're not able to do that, try to catch the narrative and try to solve it through that narrative. But narrative again, everything is nothing but a narrative in an MUN, right? The more you're able to understand that in what direction a specific conversation is going, the better you're able to actually come back with it. For example, you sit down on, you go to your living room, your parents are there, if you have siblings they're there, maybe your pet is sitting, and those guys are watching some show, right? You wouldn't just walk onto them and say that I want to have dinner, right? Whereas everyone has either had dinner, or it's not time for dinner yet, XYZ, whatever the reason may be. But you have to go back and you have to talk to the right person. You have to talk to your mom that I'm feeling hungry, what should I do, right? And then your mom will give you a suggestion, right? If that suggestion doesn't work out, she'll go and help you out. But if you go and you announce it to the whole family, everyone is going to be like, okay, then you're going to disturb the narrative of what they're doing right now, right? Because you're hungry, someone else might feel hungry as well. And then one thing leads to another. You guys might end up ordering a pizza, which is good. But then again, that's not what we were looking for, right? Uh, you guys are still in school. You guys can have all the pizzas you want. I'm kind of, I've crossed 25. I have to be careful of how many pizzas I eat, right? So yeah, the next thing is research and think, right? I'll come to research and think on the next slide again. I'll just focus on be inclusive. As I said in the first step, listen well. Make sure you're allowing other people to speak. You're not cutting someone's speech. You're not continuously going back and proving someone wrong, right? That this is where you're wrong, this is why you're wrong. No, no, no. You're actually just disturbing the narrative again, right? Just by interrupting someone else, or just you're demeaning someone by doing that, right? And that's not a good sign, right? That's not something you should focus on. You're focusing on doing something positive in a conference, right? You're not focused on just proving yourself right. The urge to prove ourselves right all the time is a sign of low self-esteem. Try to think about it, right? You don't have to prove prove to anyone that you're right. If you are right, it'll eventually show, right? So don't run after proving other people wrong just because you think you're right. Maybe you're wrong as well, right? So be inclusive, right? Try to be kind and nice to everyone in the committee, right? You don't have to continuously be mean to someone just because US is mean to North Korea. You don't have to do that in an MUN as well, right? And US is not mean to North Korea anymore. I mean, we all saw those romantic videos with Trump and Kim Jong-un, right, running around the park and everything. So yeah. Now, when I say about research and think, let's go to the don'ts, right? So when I say research, what I mean is don't just Google, right? Googling is not research, right? Googling the right keywords, finding something, that's not research, right? That's just some content which is out there and you're using a tool to find it, and you're trying to present it in the committee as if you found out that that piece of evidence or that piece of information. That's kind of like what scientists were doing for COVID vaccine. That was research. They were not sitting down on Google and finding कि कहीं पे पड़ी हुई है रेसिपी COVID-19 वैक्सीन की, वहां से निकालते हैं मिल जाएगी. ऐसे नहीं होता, right? You have to think. You have to come up with new ideas. You have to actually gather information, funnel it, right? And then think, right? With your own mind and try to come up with a solution, right? For example, there was the migrant workers exodus, right? N number of solutions do come to your mind. That is fine. right? But have you done enough research in order to understand that how do you actually put those kind of solutions into effect? Have we studied about which ministry should be concerned about it? Have we studied about, is it a matter that should be concerned for the state governments or the central government? If which government is it concerned, which department does it fall under, right? If you have to write an RTI, who should you reach out to, right? If someone has to be helped on the ground, right, how will the funds be released? Where will they go? How will they disperse? If we do not understand the anatomy of that structure, right, all we're doing is a chai ki tapri wala discussion, which has no reason. Most of India is free and they're doing it right now, right, as we speak, right? So what we're doing through Google is gathering information. The research happens in your mind once you have absorbed that information. So do not confuse information with research. Information is not research, right? A UN document which already exists is information. It's not research. Get it? So try to absorb this thing in. Don't booze. You guys are too young for that, I guess. But yeah, still, just don't. Uh, Even if you're young, I'm sure some of you might be, but don't. Not during an MUN at least, right? Be careful about it. Don't over prepare, right? Don't keep gathering a lot of stuff. Just building a narrative in your own mind. Don't and be flexible with your narrative, which you have created in your mind, right? If you over prepare, you're stuck to one narrative. You go to the committee room, right? Nobody follows that narrative, and at the end of the day, you're like, my research is waste. Everything that I have in the house is nobody wants to talk about it, right? So what do I do now? So you come back at the end of day one and you start preparing from scratch. The point is, have an open mind, have an open narrative, right? Take n number of narratives with you in the house, right, and see which one fits the best, right, as per the other people who are there in the house. Don't be desperate to speak, right? Wait for your turn. If you're not getting a chance to speak, write to the executive board, write to the other delegate to whom you want to convey the information to. That's it. Don't be desperate to speak. Don't just keep jumping around the house with your placard. And don't keep finding faults in other people's speech, as I said in the previous one. All right. So I think that's pretty much it from my end right now. I'm kind of going to open the floor for questions. So yeah, I guess this is all I was able to capture so far. So we have
Thank
like,
you so
I
much,
think we
sir.
have 45 minutes or whatever. Yeah, Ananya, over to you, man.
Thank you, sir. Your words were actually very easy and relatable. Like they made sense to all of us, I'm sure, on different levels. And I'm sure it motivated people who haven't
Thank you.
started with months yet to go and attend some, and the ones who are already attending months to, get a new perspective on it. So thank you. I would like to open the floor for questions, which Manas will be attending to. Manas,
Yeah, thank you, Ananya.
thank
Uh,
you.
sh- yeah, I'll be addressing some of the questions I've received over the chat box. Um, yeah, okay. So the first question is, are Mans bilingual?
No,
Like,
MUNs are not bilingual. MUNs are so when we say bilingual, we're basically meaning कि MUN में English चलती है नहीं चलती. Youth parliaments में चलती है usually, ठीक है. But bilingual, I would not suggest from the first hand, right? Now, if it's like, again, I'm not saying that it's a stereotype in any way that bilingual is bad. No, it's not bad. But if possible, try to stick to one language. If it's an MUN, it's preferred that it should only be English. If it's a youth parliament, try to stick to your one language. It can be English, it can be Hindi, it can be Marathi, it can be Punjabi, right? But the more you stick to one single language, the more impactful your speeches will be. English speeches are less impactful than an English speech or a Hindi speech. So, in youth parliaments, it's possible that you can speak bilingual. In MUNs, I don't think I've ever seen an MUN which happens in anything other than English usually. I think there are 5 languages where the UN recognizes as global languages. It's French, Russian, Chinese, English, Spanish, and Arabic. If any of you speak any of those languages, nobody can stop you from speaking in the house. So yeah.
okay, moving on to the next question. Can being a part of Model United Nations help us in improving us? And if yes, how?
I think I kind of answered that question, but I would go back to saying that improving you in what sense should be a better way to ask this question, right? And it's not going to improve any of us in any way, right? Because we learn our most importantly, our communication, our manners, our etiquettes are something which come from our school and our home, right? So if we're not doing well there, we're unlikely to do well in MUNs also, right? But yeah, I mean, MUNs do add a value in one way or another, but you can't go back to an MUN thinking that, you know, once you do an MUN, you'll be a better person. No, it's not like that. Like it's like again, if you run the Mumbai half marathon, it's a Mumbai marathon, but if you run, let's say 10 kilometers in it, right? If you run it, you'll feel really good about it, right? But that's it. You know, nothing else is going to change about you until and unless, you know, you keep practicing the 10-kilometer run every week, maybe, or something like that. That'll make you healthier. That'll make you fitter, right? But just going to these events is not going to change until and unless you don't practice what you learn there.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. Um, uh, why is there a bifurcation regarding private and public conferences? Is there any more preference given there?
No. Private conferences are organized to make profit. I guess that's the only reason that I see fitting. The institutional conferences are organized because, of course, you know, it's extracurricular activities, and schools and those kind of organizations think that it should be done. In Mumbai, there is this organization called PCGT, which I think Ishan is also part of, right? So that's one good privately organized conference as well, right? But then again, you have to be cautious, right? You're not basically just remember, if you're paying more than $1,000 or something for an MUN, you're wasting your money. That's it.
Okay. So one more question. What is the duration of a regular month?
2 days, 3 days. I think these are procedural questions. I think I can answer something better than this, Manas. I think these questions can be
Yeah,
taken by Ishan or Sejal also.
yeah.
Maybe we can keep the floor open
What?
for a live question, but
Um,
it's totally up to you how you want to do it.
okay, like we already have a
Okay,
lot of
sure,
questions
sure,
in the
sure.
chat box, so yeah. What are other points taken into consideration except the humanitarian point of view? Like, what are other aspects of a modern United Nation?
So talking about how the executive board judges, again, that's completely subjective.
Yeah,
Only the executive board who's judging you can actually answer that. I can tell you something, but maybe you'll meet someone who wouldn't be following my points, who would think I'm an idiot. So it's okay. It's completely fine. There's a lot of difference of opinion when it comes to how do you judge in an MUN, right? So asking one person is never going to give you the right answer, right? It's always going to be the conference that you're going into. Talk to that or ask these questions to that executive board member who is judging you at that point in time, right? No one else can help you out because it's a very subjective criteria, and in my 6-7 years of doing MUNs, I've never seen two executive board member who think exactly alike, right? Even the closest of my friends with whom I've done those conferences, we do have some we always have some dissent or the other.
right. Also, would attending Modern United Nation conferences add value to our CVs at a college level?
Absolutely not. No way. Nobody cares. It's the experience that is helping you improve your personality, maybe, right? Because of the points that I said, that, you know, you get interpersonal experiences, you learn what it feels like to be wrong, you learn what it feels like to be right, you learn what it feels like to lose or to win or whatever it is, right? You learn how to think out of the box, think different from everyone else in the room, right? Those are the experiences which enrich you as a person, right? And you can apply those learnings to other fields as well. So for example, everything that I learned from MUNs, I mean, my profession is not related to that, but still the nuance, as I said in the very beginning, right? The ability to think differently, that's something which helps you in any field you are. And this is maybe a good place to practice that. Of course, it happens in a different flavor, but it's possible to switch that flavor. But your resume CVs, uh, I've had at least a dozen. So, like, I've appeared for during my college placements, I've appeared for companies, I've appeared off campus. So far, I've worked with two companies. I've had about a dozen job offers so far. Never has my CV mentioned the point that I did MUNs, because it doesn't matter. It depends what your CV is, because that's a totally different discussion. What is a CV? How should you use it? And all those things. MUNs, nobody really cares. It's kind of like, think of it like, for example, it's a very stereotypical and maybe a very generic example that I'm giving, but Tendulkar didn't play cricket because he thought other people like it, or will it add value to his, or will it add value to his CV or something. He played because he liked it. That's it. It's as simple as that. If you like doing MUNs, do it, right? But then again, it has to be an unconditional love, right? You can't expect something back in return. You might get something, but you might not. So the more you expect, the worse you're supposed to feel. बिकॉज यू वर लाइक, अरे भैया मैंने सोचा था 20 एमयूएन कर लूंगा, लाइफ बदल जाएगी, मतलब अचानक से मैं टेलीब्रांड्स की एड में आ रहा हूँ, पहले मैं बहुत दुखी रहता था, फिर मैंने एमयूएन किया, अब मैं बहुत खुश हो गया. ऐसा कुछ नहीं होने वाला, ठीक है? इट्स ऑल गोइंग टू, योर लाइफ इज स्टिल गोइंग टू बी द सेम, मैन.
Thank you, sir. Also, what committees would you recommend to a beginner? If like if
there's
yeah,
no
if
recommendation.
okay.
I think if I have to recommend, I would say go do a Indian parliamentary committee, do a Lok Sabha or a Rajya Sabha. It's important that we understand what's going on in our country first before we go out talking about global issues.
Yeah, I extremely agree with that. Also, we have one more question.
And second of all, we already have a very good idea about Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha.
True.
Because of the news we consume every day, because of you can. It's as simple as start reading about Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, just going back to your own textbooks, right? It's right there. You can have the idea exactly there what's going on there, right? So it's the easiest start. It's a very easy win for you, right? That's how. Win matlab award wali win nahi, matlab win in terms of understanding something.
Right. Also, if we want to learn more about international relations, where should we start?
Start reading a newspaper. Buy that paper wala newspaper, Indian Express or the Hindu, preferably. If it's already there, read it. Spend an hour with it every morning.
Thank you, sir. How do you think one should approach research in their initial conferences?
Again, subjective question. Depends. Initial conferences का भी मतलब है कि आप कहाँ participate कर रहे हो, committee क्या है, council है क्या है, मतलब whatever it is. And then it's again research का जो मैंने एक example दिया था, research का मतलब Google करना नहीं होता. पहले समझो चीजों को. जब तक समझोगे नहीं, feeling नहीं आएगी मन में, तब तक कुछ नहीं होगा. Right?
Yeah,
For
I
example,
agree.
you guys organize a surprise birthday party for one of your friends or your crush or whatever it is, right? As applicable the case may be. So you have to really feel it. Then only you can come up with good ideas, right? If you're just copying someone else's idea, you're going to be really bored about it and you wouldn't know what to do, what's next. So yeah, I mean, as long as you're not going to gather all that information in your head and then let your brain process that information, you can't research. So first, not for the first few MUNs, forever in life, whether it's an MUN, whether it's a college assignment, whether it's a project you're working on, whether it's work sometime in your life, whenever you're there, always start from the basics, right? Gather the basic information for it, put it in your mind, let your brain process something out of it, and then proceed ahead. You'll know the answers yourself, right? You start stepping on those stones, you'll find the bridge, cross every bridge once you reach there. That's it. If you're participating, you should first exactly as I said that council or committee में क्या difference होता है? Is there anyone on this call who can explain it to me? Council or committee में difference क्या है? Did someone Google it meanwhile? Anyone? Come on. If there is someone who would like to answer this, I think we should allow them. Come on, someone. I have how many? Like 72 people online.
Yeah, I have enabled the participants to unmute themselves.
Yeah, anyone would like to answer that question? What is the difference between a committee and a council?
Sir, if I may.
Sure, please go ahead.
So, sir, I just basically Googled it, and council refers to a group of people who come together to consult and deliberate. Meanwhile, committee consists of a group of people who together make decisions on a larger organization they represent, sir.
Okay. I think that might be a dictionary understanding of it, which is fine, which is fair enough. At least we know there's a difference, right?
Yes.
Now, coming back to the difference, what actually represents between a council and a committee is that a council comprises of democratically elected individuals. A committee comprises of nominated individuals, which is why you would always see, for example, a council always has a president. A committee always has a chairman or a chairperson, right? So these subtle differences, if we don't know these differences, there's no point in understanding कि Gaza वाले dispute में Palestine का क्या rule है, right? Like you can know that and still don't know where you're speaking. You're kind of defeating the whole point. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Also, thank you so much for answering so many questions, sir. We will take one last question now.
Sure.
Would you like to walk us through one of your best MUN experiences?
One of my best MUN experiences. In what terms again? Can you make that quick? Can you make it precise on your own?
Okay. So, like,
who asked that question? Let's ask that person to rephrase this question. In what terms do you want to put it? Like after I've spoken all of that.
Ivy has asked. Ivy has asked this.
Ivy, would you like to specify that question? Yeah, please.
Sure. Like a high point you always look forward to. Like now that you're out of the nutshell, out in the world, what do you look back to as a high point? Like you've been part of so many MUNs today. Does it make the question more specific? Does that help?
Okay. I do have a bunch of memories, right? I think there's one time what happened is that I was participating in a conference which was happening in my college. I was a delegate. It was Lok Sabha, and I was actually elected to be the leader of opposition. Right, and there was this another guy who was the prime minister, so he was the leader of the house, right? And we had a really, I think it was a good debate, right? But we sort of went on to those extremes that people kind of started asking us that do you guys hate each other or something? I was like, I hope not, because that guy and me, we've been roommates for 2 years, right? I don't know if any of you know that guy's name is Ishan Joshi. I think he's done quite a few MUNs in Mumbai and Pune. So right, so like Ishan and I were roommates in college. Him and I share the same birthday as well, right? But the point is that that was one debate which is something which I think I would rate at one of the best debates I've ever had, because we kind of knew each other's shortcomings and we were exploiting that and we were still fighting. Right. So it was a really good, it was a really good debate, where you already know your opponent, their weak points, and they know yours, and you're kind of, fighting the best battle you ever can, right? Despite being vulnerable to the other person's tactics. So yeah, but that was a time, we also kind of used to treat MUNs and debating as a sport, right? It was a bit later that I realized that, you don't have to be that competitive and treat it as a sport, because Oxford debating or classical debating is a sport. MUNs and youth parliaments are not so much of a sport. So yeah, but yeah, at the end of it, that was I think the last time him and I participated against each other in a conference. And although, both of us kind of have the similar ideology, we do have some dissent though. But the point was that when we were enrolling into that conference, they asked us to participate in two different committees, but we were like, no, we want to go to the same one. And then I was like, okay, let's both of us, let us fill out from the opposition side. And then it was Ishan's point that what's the point in doing that? It was like, if I go opposition and you go opposition, we're basically just going to be reiterating the same thing we already know. I mean, we won't be able to explore the debate very well as long as we don't go against each other. So that's where I realized, with the best of your friends who are good at debating or whatever it is, it's better to go fight against them than fight with them. Right. So don't that's why I would say, don't team up, but be always courteous and be always nice to your opponents, because you might find the best of friends there also. And Ishan and I have been friends for what, about 9 years now? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, we were friends before we knew there is something called MUNs. So yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure listening to you speak. And now I'll be handing over to Sejal Dalvi, who was a secretary general for the previous edition. Over to you, Sejal.
Thank you so much.
So we have like 24 minutes in our hand. We can do more questions if they're there. If someone wants to ask, live questions, or it's Sejal, it's your call, man. You're the boss.
We can take some more questions if anyone has any queries right now.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure.
So my simple question is, a conference is like SRM, which hosts around 200 delegates in a committee at a very huge scale. Sir, would you advise really delegating in such committees?
Yeah, sure. Why not? You'll meet 199 people.
Sir, I just had a follow-up to it. I wanted to know your views on the same.
Sure. Of course.
Sir, considering like a huge strength and that SRM, bigger conferences have witnessed issues of recognition, sir. So how would you recommend or advise us?
Answer me. I get it. Think about what's your core motivation to go in a conference. If you're worried that, sitting in a 200 people committee, you won't be recognized, which means you won't be able to win, then you're focusing on just winning the award, right? Which is why I think it's better suited that you go into a smaller committee. But I wouldn't generalize that concept that nobody should participate in a 200 people committee, because there are still 200 people sitting there, right? It's not like those people are being fooled or anything. So yeah, I mean, different people can have different priorities. Based on those priorities, you can choose which is the best committee suited for you to participate in. But it's never a generalized notion that I can't tell you if pink suits you because you have turned off your video. I can't see your screen, right? But I wouldn't say that pink doesn't suit anyone, right? Because I sure love pink. So things are really simple. Treat things as simple as they are. Don't complicate issues. The more you complicate issues in life, the more paradox of choice you'll be stuck in, right? So always, break things down to fundamental and granular levels, right? And always ask yourself that what is my motivation to do something in life? Whether it's choosing an MUN conference, whether it's choosing a career, right? What is your core motivation, which you want to fulfill at the end of it? That's what should help you answer your question. Since your motivation appears to be an award, it might, make you feel better if you're participating in a smaller committee, because there, you'll feel psychologically much more active, as compared to, not doing speaking less for 200 among 200 people for 3 days. You might feel less satisfied or something. So yes, according to your priorities, maybe not, but it's not like nobody should participate there. Anyone else?
Yes. Yeah, we have a few questions on the chat box.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why don't these people ask it live?
I think
Yeah, we have
they
21
already.
minutes. Come on. Okay, sure.
Yeah. One of the questions is, where can we find the UN prescribed procedure which you had spoken about earlier?
Google it. Go to the un.org and find your way through.
Okay. One more question. What differences are there in a UN prescribed procedure and other procedures which are followed?
There are a lot of differences. Again, I can't, tell those differences. And as I already said, I'm not going to say one is better than the other. But yeah, I mean, there are some differences. It's all, think of it like, like there is Test cricket, there's T20 cricket, there's one-day cricket, right? All the three formats are fun. It's just that all three of them follow different rules, right? But if you understand the rules of all the three formats, you'll be able to enjoy the game. Otherwise, you'll always stay confused कि one day के अंदर test वाले rules क्यों नहीं लग रहे.
Okay. If there are any live questions.
Yeah, sure. Anything outside MUNs also works.
Okay.
You don't have to be like मुझे MUN पे question बनाना है.
Can I ask one?
Anything you guys think I'll be able to answer? Yeah, please.
So, sir, do you think that UN was any more successful than the League of Nations? Because all the countries all the main countries which form the United Nations, basically, do you have an opinion whether they are partial on what is happening in the world? Like China is one of the main countries which consists in the UN. So, I'm sorry. So do you think that the delay in the research that from where did the coronavirus actually came from was delayed because China was a part of it? So basically, is there any partiality in the operations that go on in the United Nations?
Okay, let's start from the question that League of Nations and United Nations. Right. Let's just, I'll just recall the story. There was this country called Abyssinia, right, which is modern day Ethiopia, right? So it was called Abyssinia back then, and it was a monarchy. It had a king, right? And it was a country of savages. It was a country of, rurally dwelling nomads. That's what that entire country was about. And Mussolini, the great dictator of Italy, he actually plundered an attack on Abyssinia, right? And it dropped chemical bombs on it. The king of Abyssinia had to flee from that country. He went to New York. He attended the League of Nations meeting, and he begged in front of that entire room to please save them from Mussolini, right? Because they cannot do anything. They cannot fight back. And the League of Nations did nothing. So the question is, this is why League of Nations fell, because League of Nations was basically trapped in the hands of a couple of countries, and that's all that was going on. If we look at United Nations, again, it's about perspectives. United Nations was able to correct several things, but again, some things tend to keep coming back, right? Because the one difference between United Nations was that it was able to at least dissociate itself from individual countries, right? However, at the same time, as you said about coronavirus, again, it's also about proving the validity of something, right? Because I think I read an article yesterday on Bloomberg where they're actually telling how far we've actually come to understanding the origins of the coronavirus, right? Because there are several theories which actually illustrate that it never originated in China either, right? Or it wasn't a Chinese conspiracy, right? So again, as long as something has not been proven, we can't really blame a specific country about it, right? And at the end of it, we, no one country can be held responsible eventually, right? Because if you have to play the blame game, it's a never ending exercise, right? Now, the last thing is, United Nations is independent of all countries. That does not mean United Nations is more powerful than all countries, because eventually what is upheld is the sovereignty of a nation, and sovereignty supersedes United Nations, right? United Nations can tomorrow come and tell India do something, and if it does not fits as per our constitution, we can refuse United Nations to do it, right? So yeah, I mean, there are these subtle differences which we should remember, that United Nations is an organization, but it's not above the government of India for us. We do not live by the rules laid down by the United Nations. You and I live by the rules laid down by the Constitution of India, right? And so does every citizen in this world. They live by the rules which are set down by their governments, right? So United Nations is an organization. United Nations is a platform to negotiate among those governments, right? But it is not above anyone. So that's that.
Thank you.
Is there anything else?
Also, I have one more question, and I have
Sure.
I've heard about this question a lot of times, but I would like to have you speak on it. Sir, what do you think about researches through Wikipedia? I mean, how
it's fine as long as there is an evidence to substantiate it. I mean, I don't know why, so I think until and unless I did not go to an MUN, I didn't know Wikipedia is bad. I used to think Wikipedia is an amazing thing, right? It was only, we go to the MUNs and it is, Wikipedia is so, looked with a dark eye, and, it is so stereotyped and prejudiced. And I was like, no, man, I mean, I was relying on it for a lot of things I've learned from the web. So no, Wikipedia is fine. I mean, you just have to know what's the source of something that you've learned. For example, Wikipedia is not the source of the information for anything. Wikipedia is a repository of that information. That information came from somewhere else. So if you know the source, you're good with it. So for example, if you're picking anything from Wikipedia, you scroll down, there is a section called references. You'll be able to find that from where does Wikipedia source that information. So if you don't say that I brought it from Wikipedia and you say I brought it from this source, that's there. But then again, Wikipedia ki puri behas is around centered hai that some people believe that there should be validity of the evidence that is being talked in the debate, right? But the point is how transparent or how vigilant are those people who are actually evaluating your evidence. For example, you say that it comes from a certain newspaper, it was published there, that's your source of information, and you bring it to me. Now the point is, if I say, okay, it came in a newspaper, then it must be true, and I agree to it. That's not true, right? Just because some newspaper reported something, it is not bound to be addressed to be true. And last of all, whenever you're debating in a committee, even your facts can be inadmissible, right? Even facts can be inadmissible. Even in court of law, facts can be inadmissible, right? Because facts are sometimes as good as a belief, right? So don't just stereotype and cast aside Wikipedia, right? I've actually made a donation to Wikipedia as well recently when they were kept showing me on my browser that please donate, please donate. I was like, okay, I mean, I've had a lot from you. I mean, it's okay if I throw in a few $100 there. So yeah, I mean, but at the end of it, we should remember that how do we classify the information that we're consuming, right? It's not just from Wikipedia. Just scroll down and know what is the source of that information. That's it.
Hello, sir.
Hey.
Sir, I had a question.
Sure.
Sir, there has been a lot of talk about expanding the Security Council of the United Nations. The G4 countries are actively pushing forward to it, but there's still, it's like it's been delaying for many years. So some thoughts about it?
I'll ask my friend Narendra Modi to convey this to the Security Council and ask him that what's going on there. Tell me. So yeah, I mean, nobody can answer that question actually, but if you take my opinion on it, I don't think it's going to happen. Nobody's expanding Security Council. It's a whole international geopolitical gimmick. Everyone wants a seat. That's it. And everyone just wants a seat because it's not available. That's all. It's not going to happen.
Okay, sir, we have a
All
question on the chat box. Yeah. So, sir, you have been into months since years and doing such 30 to 50 conferences, you have gained a lot of knowledge. Being to different months and interacting with the different people who have different thoughts in being into various discussions, how has Model United Nations made a difference in your life, and what would your life be without doing these months?
I think it still would be pretty good. I mean, it's not like, I went to MUNs, that's why my life is good. So yeah, I think don't limit yourself. It's not like, MUN is a good thing. It's not the only good thing in the world. There are a lot of good things to do. And if you don't do it right, even MUN can be a bad thing for you. Right. So yeah, I mean, there's no such thing. I gathered knowledge because I like gathering knowledge. I didn't gather knowledge because I went to MUNs. If I had not gone to MUNs, I would have gathered it some way or the other. Right. That's it. It's a very subjective thing to do, but yeah, MUNs are not a magic wand to solve problems in life, or a magic wand to earn something in life. No, it's not. It's just an extracurricular activity, and that's how we should look at it, right? It's a good activity, right? But then again, it's not the only activity.
Yeah, extremely agreed.
Right.
Okay, we will have this last question,
Sure.
and then if there are any live questions, due to COVID pandemic, can we say that it has had a good effect on our lifestyle? Or has it nourished the digitalization? What is your opinion on it?
I think I would say both from the perspective of how teachers student communication in schools has been, because my mom is a teacher, right? And since I've been working from home for almost a year now, 13th of March was the last time I went to office, right? For the last 1 year, I've been working from home. So from both the perspectives, excuse me, it's certainly, it has its both pros and cons, but at the end of it, I would say we need people back in the offices. We need students back in the classrooms, right? Because it's getting a bit stressful uh, for especially for the teachers. I think it's not a it hasn't been a very comfortable journey throughout, because they had to adapt and learn new technology, right, which was not very simple for them to do. They had to make peace with how there are network inconsistencies, the classes break out, and those kind of things that happen. Some teachers have been abused by students online as well, which is the most shameful thing any student should ever do in life, right? But at the end, I think for teachers, it has been a year full of extreme struggle, organizing these classes online. So from a teacher student point of view, I don't think that the students are ready yet to attend these classes online. From the purpose of how I've been dealing my life with work, I like it, but I think I kind of want to go back to that fancy city again as well. I work out of Gurgaon, so yeah, I kind of miss out partying on the weekend sometimes. I'm not a party person, but yeah, I still like to hop onto a restaurant and buy a nice pasta at least.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll be I'll be handing it over to Sejal Dalli, who is our Secretary General. Sejal, over to you.
Excuse me, may I ask the live question?
Yes, sir, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, we have some time. So, and a couple of questions earlier, we had asked you about UN and League of Nations, and you said that we are bound to our country's constitutions and rules, and UN is not above that. But in a series, I guess Expanse, it's on Amazon Prime Video. I watched it, and it tells about basically the future when humans inhabit different planets. So UN rules. Like, have you watched it? Like,
देखो
तो
ये है वो एग्जांपल कि विकिपीडिया रिसर्च ठीक है कि नहीं है. अब देखो Amazon प्राइम की रिसर्च तो बिल्कुल ही खराब है फिर.
No, I'm just asking your opinion. As in, they basically like it depicts.
नहीं मेरे ओपिनियन नहीं, देखो क्या होता है ना, दुनिया भर के ओपिनियंस का क्या है ना, एवरीवन हैज एन ओपिनियन, राइट. सो ओपिनियंस के पीछे नहीं भागना चाहिए कि आप क्या सोचते हो. हाउ मेनी पीपल, 58 people on this call can give you at least 116 opinions, at least 2 opinion per person. You might be having your one as well, right? Opinions के पीछे मत भागो लाइफ में ब्रो. I mean, you'll always be surrounded by opinions. पेरेंट्स बोलते रहते हैं ना, 4 लोग क्या सोचेंगे, 4 ओपिनियन तो पेरेंट्स भी लेके बैठे हुए हैं, ठीक है. तो ओपिनियंस आर नॉट समथिंग वी शुड स्ट्राइव टू गैदर, right? We should strive to gather knowledge, right? So gather the information which requires a thought process to go behind it. I can tell you an opinion, it might be interesting, right? But it's not going to add value to anyone's life because it's just my opinion. And honestly, if you ask me, my opinion is I don't care.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Right. I hope
you,
that did not
Sejal.
come out as mean or rude, but yeah, that's kind of what it is. Stop gathering people's opinions. Opinions don't matter in life. Nobody's opinion matters. Sometimes not even our own.
Totally agreed, sir. Over to you, Sejal.
Thank you, Manas. If there are no more questions now, I'll move forward to the vote of thanks. I would like to express my special thanks of gratitude to our speaker for the evening, Mr. Bhumit Sharma, for being here today and interacting with us, sharing with us their experiences and guiding us about how to go about the month and how we can improvise ourselves as well. I would like to thank Dr. B.B. Sharma, sir, the principal of VG Waze College, and our faculty in charge, Ms. Sangeeta Aher, ma'am, for being with us since day one and for having our back and always giving us the opportunities to organizing such events. I thank our host for the evening, Ms. Ananya Gadnes and Mr. Manas Patil, without whom this webinar could not have been successful, of course. And with this, I welcome all the new organizing committee members to Waze Man and Waze Youth Parliament team. There's a lot in store for you all, and for that, please stay tuned in the WhatsApp group as we have instructed you before, and the further instructions will be sent there itself. Thank you so much again, sir, for being here today and helping us out. Thank you. Sir, we request you to stay back for 2 minutes for a picture, and rest of the participants can start leaving now. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All the best.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.